know those little pudding desserts that when you cut them open, all of the centre oozes out? I think some people call them lava cakes. They're also called fondant puddings. I mean, there's a lot of different names for them. I call mine chocolate fondant pudding, and I think that's because I saw that name on a recipe, a menu rather, somewhere. But I often wondered how they got that lovely soft centre. I mean, how did they manage to get this beautiful casing on the outside and this gorgeous soft centre? Well, the answer's so simple, it's amazing. They actually just don't cook them for very long. And what you end up with is the centre not actually cooked, like you would if you made a cake and you didn't cook it long enough. Now, you're probably thinking, oh, well, maybe, you know, the egg and everything that's in it isn't then cooked enough. Well, actually it is, because the length of time that it's in the oven, which is about 12 minutes, is more than enough to cook the egg. And the rest of it, well, most of it, actually, in fact, for this particular recipe, is mostly melted chocolate. There's very little flour in it, very little anything else. It's eggs and chocolate, a bit of flavouring, and that's sort of it. But they are just beautiful desserts. They look fantastic on the plate. People will always be amazed by them, and they're very easy to make. And the thing I like about them, which is what I do tend to do when I do desserts, and that is I like to have things that are made in advance, so all I have to do is assemble them or do that last bit of cooking. And the beauty of this recipe is that I can make the entire mixture up, and I usually just pop it into a jug and I leave it sitting in the fridge, or even actually just on the bench, especially if I do it maybe 2 or 3 hours before people get there. And then at the last minute, all I do is fill my Dariol moulds, pop it into the oven. They take 12 minutes to cook. I bring them out and I serve them hot. Now, if you make them and you don't serve them hot, that centre will solidify, especially if you pop it in the fridge. So you'll end up with a very moist, almost mud cake pudding, which, mind you, actually tastes great as well. So there's nothing wrong with that, but it will give you a completely different texture. So the key to this is to make your mixture, let it sit, and then pop it into the moulds, into the oven, serve it straight away as soon as it comes out. And I generally do it with a little bit of mascarpone or a little bit of ice cream or some fresh cream, whatever you want to serve it with. But they really are quite rich, and they're almost perfect just on their own. So let me show you how simple they are to make these beautiful little chocolate fondant puddings. What you'll need to make this pudding is dark chocolate that you'll melt with the butter, whole eggs as well as egg yolks, sugar and a little bit of plain flour. The first step is to melt your chocolate and butter together in a saucepan over low heat. Traditionally, if you're going to melt chocolate on a cooktop, particularly a gas or an electric one, you'll either place it in a bowl set above simmering water or a double saucepan, if you have one, or on extremely low heat in a saucepan that's sitting on a simmer mat to keep the temperature as low as possible. But because we're using this much butter, the fat in the butter will prevent the chocolate from overheating, and so we can do it directly on the heat source without any buffer. So once you've added both ingredients, turn the heat on to low and stir the ingredients together so that some of the butter melts first at the bottom of the saucepan, which will combine with the chocolate as it melts and help prevent it from not overheating or caking. Once the ingredients begin to liquidize together, you can reduce the heat to very low and allow them to melt slowly until they're completely melted together and there are no lumps. While that's happening, let's go and prepare the rest of the ingredients. Begin by placing the egg yolks and the whole eggs in a bowl together. Then, using a whisk, mix them together till they're all thoroughly combined. Then add the sugar and continue to whisk until the mixture is fluffy and all the sugar has been combined. You can use an electric mixer if you wish, but I find a whisk does the job sufficiently. Once the ingredients are thoroughly combined, check your chocolate and butter to ensure they've completely melted together and that there are no lumps. Give the mixture a final stir to distribute any unmelted fragments throughout the warm mixture so they melt too. Scrape off any unmelted chocolate or butter that might have been on the spoon to ensure it's incorporated. And when the ingredients are completely liquid and fully combined, remove the saucepan from the stove and allow it to cool a little before adding to the egg and sugar mixture. Because the chocolate and butter will still have some heat in the mixture, if you add them all at once to the eggs, you'll risk curdling the eggs and scrambling them. So stir the chocolate mixture for a few minutes to cool it down. Now add the chocolate to the eggs at the same time that you whisk the eggs. This will prevent the eggs from scrambling and allow the chocolate mixture to mix in thoroughly. As you do this, the mixture will begin to thicken rapidly as the hot chocolate and butter begin to coagulate the protein in the eggs. Scrape out as much of the chocolate mixture from the saucepan as possible. You can now see how firm the mixture has become. Continue to whisk to ensure there are no lumps. Now add the flour all at once, but you will find this infinitely easier to do with a wooden spoon rather than a whisk. Fold the flour through with the spoon until it too is thoroughly combined. Now leave the mixture to sit for at least 30 minutes, but it can be left for up to 3 to 4 hours before cooking. This enables the mixture to settle and any air bubbles in the mixture to subside, giving it a better finished result, much the same as resting a pancake mixture before cooking. Now I'm going to fill my Dariole moulds. I'm using straight-sided 125mm aluminium Dariole moulds, but you can use any size or shape you like. The larger you use, however, the less number of people your mixture will feed. I find 125mm is a perfect serving size. Give the moulds a spray with a cooking spray or oil. I use rice bran oil spray because it doesn't impart any flavour to the sweet recipe. And using a small ladle, spoon the mixture into each mould, filling each one 3/4 full. The mixture should make 6 to 7 puddings depending on your mould size and how full you make them. Place them in a moderate oven of 165 degrees Celsius set on fan forced for 12 minutes. When they come out of the oven, allow them to sit for 5 to 10 minutes because they'll be too hot to handle, but no longer than that, otherwise the centres will begin to set and you won't get that molten filling oozing out when you cut them. Once they're cooled enough to handle, using a bread and butter knife, ease around the edges of each mould to loosen the puddings from the edges of the mould. Then turn the mould upside down on a plate to unmould the pudding. I usually serve mine with a little bit of creme fraiche to balance out the sweetness of the chocolate and sugar, but you can even serve it with ice cream, cream or even plain yogurt if you like. And I will often garnish with a fanned strawberry and a drizzle of berry coulis.